2.
Hey, Lynz, what are you listening to?
Brian, you share yours and I'll share mine.
With millions of podcasts, how do you choose?
We are here to help you find that next bingeable podcast.
Or that piece of content you'll follow regularly.
You're listening to Feed Drops. All right, everybody. Welcome to Feed Drops. My name is Lynz, and I am here with Brian. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing well. And you know, this intro song reminded me of a TikTok I saw.
Tell me about it.
It was a bass guitarist who said, I learned to play the bass guitar in a funk band because it didn't even matter what note I played. And he's like, check this out. And he played some funk song and he's just playing crazy notes. And he's like, see, it's still bobbing my head. It was pretty funny.
Nice.
I don't know if it's true. I'm not a bass guitarist in a funk band.
No, yes. It might be hearsay, but we're admitting it into evidence anyway.
Yes, we are. Well, everybody, we'd like to welcome you to yet another episode of Feed Drops, episode number 13.
Lucky number 13.
And dude, it is stoked to be at this number.
Yes, finally. It felt like we had to do a couple of episodes a couple of times in there to get to this number.
Yeah, and Lynz, honestly, are you still having fun?
I'm having a blast. Honestly, the fun is growing.
The fun is growing. And you know what else is growing? Our supporters on Fountain.
Yes, that has been an exciting development for us.
Dude, super stoked. You know, Lynz, talk about Fountain for a second.
Okay, if you don't know about Fountain, Fountain is one of the new generation of podcast listening apps. And it is a place where you can not only listen to podcasts, but you can also find people have made, there's a clip feature that allows you to clip out pieces of podcasts that get shared on the app. While you're listening, you can stream sats, which are the unit of currency, the unit of Bitcoin. I'm already showing myself off to be a little bit of a newbie at this, but what you do is while you're listening, it streams you in little increments of these sats, which are pieces of Bitcoin. And over time, those add up and you can tip them back to the people you like. You know, you can send them off to go to another wallet and buy things with them. Anyway, I've gone a bit too far down the rabbit hole, but Fountain is a place where you can listen to shows, and if you've got sats, if you've accumulated sats, then you can stream them in support while you're listening. And so we've had some people do that for Feed Drops on the Fountain app.
We have had 6 supporters on Feed Drops and a single supporter on just the drops. And it is kind of cool. Now, a sat, you know, we're not going to retire on a sat, but it's like so heartwarming that these people find value in this, what we're doing to give back to the show, which is really, really cool. And I want to thank them. I made a note and my Dropbox isn't syncing properly, so I'm going to manually go through this. Jorge Rivas, thank you very much for your support. Libereos 19, you're awesome. And then we have user a bunch of numbers. Whoever you are, we appreciate you. And you can go into your Fountain app and profile and add a cool name in there. And then we have Remy67. Thank you so much. We have Nicholas. And lastly, we have Juan Lopez. Now that was all in support of Feed Drops. And let's run over to just the drops. And I want to shout out a cool thank you to Ivan Pinto. Thank you guys so much. It's just cool that you guys are sharing back with the show because you find value in it. And I want to encourage everybody, if you listen to podcasts on any other app, you're missing out. You're leaving money on the table. And yes, it's not a lot, but it's really cool to be able to give that back or give a portion of that back to the creator that you're listening to, and or, you know, transfer it into a trading account, get your day trade on and become the next Bitcoin millionaire.
Yeah, I think the cool part for me is that in just by listening to the app, it streams sats into my account, and then it's obvious that you can boost shows that work well. And so it's like they gave me tip money. Like, oh, cool, you gave me tip money. Well, now that I understand how to tip and I understand the economy of giving these things and sort of showing support, I might put some of my own money into it if I want to, and kind of give to the scene.
Yes. And we have another crypto related announcement we're going to make after we review the second show, but we really need to dive into today's show, Lynz.
Yeah, it's about time. So I'm going to start with telling you that the show I picked is called Crypto Newbies, and I picked it because I am a crypto newbie. And that doesn't stop me from learning about something, but it's just my entry point. Let's learn from that. Sounds like we could get some sort of entry level information on crypto and Web3. And a lot of people could use some of that info.
I completely agree. You know, I've been involved in crypto for a few years, but by no means do I consider myself an expert at anything when it comes to trading, all the altcoins, NFTs. I know enough to hold a conversation, and I do have a trading account and I dabble from time to time, but I too am a newbie. So, what a great show to get a little education from.
Yes. So what show did you bring, Brian?
I brought to the table a show called Broken Home Podcast. And it's two gentlemen who came from broken homes talking to other people, but wrapping the show in uplifting, hard lessons learned, don't do what we did mentality, which is awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like like the real talk kind of authenticity stuff that people might want to hear from a podcast.
Definitely. And we're going to get to those right after this short break. All right, Lynz, we are back. Let's get into some crypto.
Yeah, let's dig into crypto newbies. I think it's pretty easy to be a skeptic about crypto and Web3 if you don't know about it, or you've learned enough about it that it kind of makes your eyes, you get that weird look. But I think when you dig deeper, you learn that, like everything in the world, there's good and there's bad, and you can kind of parse that out yourself. And it feels like this quote kind of starts to go there.
I think overall, this world of Web3 is like still really new. There are loads of like incredible, intelligent people with the best of intentions working really hard on all the different bits of Web3, but they're messing stuff up. Okay, stuff goes wrong, and that's fine because it's new. And even though they're mega smart people, stuff goes wrong. We don't get this stuff perfect first time. Okay, everyone's learning along the way.
So that just kind of sets the stage a little bit, right? There's some exciting stuff, but people are messing some things up too. It doesn't stop it from being interesting or stop it from being something worth considering, but you can't sort of assume, you can't take everyone at face value either, right? So be a smart consumer.
You know, and when did we become a generation, a nation of it's got to be perfect or it's BS? Because nothing is perfect.
Right. And that to iron out all of the risk probably irons out all the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I've always found, in jobs, when there's a lot of volatility, when other things are going on, I've actually been able to keep my head while everyone else panics. And I'm like, I kind of like this. Because I can keep my cool,
And I was skeptical, resistant even for a while. And my nephew, thankfully, said, hey, I want you to go to this website, create an account. I'm going to send you some Bitcoin. And I'm like, all right, dude. So I do it. And I'm still like, He sends me $20 in Bitcoin. Now he says, look, I've done the research. I want you to buy this much of this coin and this much of this coin. And we're going to talk in 2 days. And 2 days later, I come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just made some money. This is kind of cool. And it took that much energy from somebody who really cared that I understood what was going on with this digital currency. And ever since then, I've been playing. And, I've turned $20 into, a few hundred and kind of dug it. It was fun.
Yeah, well, and you passed that on to me. When I said I was confused about it, you sort of explained some basics, because I think that we can all tell that the environment will take advantage of a sucker, right? And none of us wants to be that sucker.
None of us.
And two of the things that come into play when it comes to this are risk and volatility. And I think sometimes we sort of confuse those terms, or we think about them as part of the same thing. But I think it's important to kind of pull those apart and understand them as it applies to this. And so I picked this next quote where Kieran, who is the host of this podcast, Kieran talks about an article and kind of gives the primer on risk versus volatility that I found really helpful.
Risk refers to the possibility of loss, which is outcome focused. Volatility refers to a quick, unpredictable change which isn't centered around the outcome. To be a good investor, a person must be able to differentiate between these. Volatility acts as noise, while risk is worth paying attention to. Then later on in the article, it goes on to say, within investments, volatility is considered the variation from the average price. Okay, now I think this stuff's really important and really interesting and also quite hard to understand. As I say, this all comes from nasdaq.com. I will link to the article in the show notes, okay? But the way I look at it and the way I'm starting to understand it as I develop my knowledge of this type of thing is that a lot of this has got to do with time frames, okay? So, for example, if I told you about this investment opportunity where if you invest $100 today, then in a year's time, it would definitely be worth $10,000 with 100% certainty. First of all, I wouldn't believe me. These things don't exist, but let's pretend that's true for the moment. Then your risk level is 0 because it's 100% certain it's going to go up to that figure. Okay, the volatility is kind of the way it gets there. Is it up and down all the time on the route to $10,000 or whatever number I said? I think it said 10,000. Is it up and down the whole way? Does it do a straight line? Straight line would be minimum volatility. Loads of ups and downs would be lots of volatility.
So, Brian, what does risk volatility bring up for you?
Kind of the excitement in day trading, because a lot of the money I earned day trading in the early days, I was looking for volatility. And when it got low, I would buy in, and it could be an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours later, I was selling. And you're getting these small gains over and over again within a day. And they did not work out. I've lost on some coins, but overall, that strategy worked well. However, it was me sitting in front of a machine for hours. It was me setting up stop limit orders to buy, sell. And, I can remember going, okay, just one more ride, give me that one more. And, then setting my last stop limit orders and going to bed and waking up and checking to see what triggered. And it was exciting for me, not to the point of addictive. I could see how it can be for some people.
Very close, yeah.
But nowadays, it's like I might log into my account, set a couple buy and sell stop limit orders in, and not log in for another 2 or 3 weeks and go, okay, they triggered. What's next? But the volatility was the excitement for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be for you, Lynz?
I think so. I mean, I'm not in love with risk, but I have learned that, or, of some of the like risk versus reward thing, right? And so I think the volatility is confusing to a lot of people. And so when I take the time to understand it better than the average person, I feel like that reduces my risk.
Yeah. I mean, I encourage anybody who wants to get into it, set some money aside that if you lost it, if it was $100 bill, that if you dropped it on the sidewalk, you're like, oh, well, that sucked. And that way you're not committing more than you should be from a household financial perspective. Fortunately, I was given $20. If I lost it, sorry, Chris, you suck. You know, it wasn't my money. And now I feel like I am playing with other people's money. So,
because everything you've gained from it is
right,
from that initial thing. Yeah.
right. And so it's like I can be a little riskier because if it all went away tomorrow, oh well. You know, it's, you know, bummer, but I'm not going to cry.
Here's the one piece of advice I would give was set aside that amount, but only buy in with half of it at
Yeah.
first, because you're going to learn something about yourself and the stocks by buying them. And then you're going to want to do it again.
Yep. And some lessons are more expensive than others.
I've already learned a couple. Well, we've learned a lot of lessons in this segment here. A big thank you to Crypto Newbies. This has been a great way to kind of dig in and talk about this stuff. And if you stay till the end of the show, we're going to talk about another kind of Web3 development that pertains to this show and to podcasters. But now we're going to take a quick break and come back with Brian's show.
All right, everybody. I have Broken Home Podcast for you. Yeah, well, in this show, Broken Home Podcast, Mark and Jason, with no positive male role models, no fathers in the household growing up, you know, they had to become adults, whether they were ready or not. And they are interviewing others that, you know, grew up under not so norm. Hopefully it's not so norm situation. And this first one kind of gravitated towards me because of whom they were interviewing, and I listened to this entire episode before I chose it, and it spoke to me. So here is clip number 1.
How hard was it for a kid your age to get a gun at that time?
Well, the area that we lived in, it was relatively easy, but I didn't go nowhere looking for it. Actually, it came to me. My big brother had a situation going on with some people. They had some beef going on, and he was getting ready to leave the house. I was in there playing the game, and he brought it to me. He just showed it to me real quick. I don't even remember. I think it was like a 38 or something. He just showed it to me real quick. He like, hey, anybody running this house? Anybody, you know, you go outside, anybody play with you, say anything crazy, you shoot them. Look, he gave me like a 20-second tutorial. He said, this how you hold it, this how you aim it, you pull the trigger, that's how you shoot it. I got to go. And he gave it to me and left out the house.
Now, the guest here that you heard the majority of speaking, his name is Bill, and he grew up in Detroit and at a young age moved to Georgia where they didn't know anybody. And earlier in the episode, he talked about his mom wanting to get him and his brothers out of Detroit and taken to a better place. And he talks about how the Bluffs in Georgia, outside Atlanta, wasn't any different, and how the same lifestyle for them just continued, which was, I don't know, it's being a parent is difficult. You know, there's no owner's manual. There's no do this, don't never do that. And, you know, we make decisions when we need to, and sometimes we don't have the opportunity to understand the full ramifications of those decisions. But it was the decision that was made with the information we had at the time. We had to make that decision. And it's just, I don't know, I really resonated with this and the struggle and him being uprooted at a young age with his brothers and taken to this new place. And I mean, being a kid, I want to say he was 13, if I remember correctly in this episode, when his brother handed him this gun. I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Well, and that's, you don't have a, I think, you know, there's a lot of talk that the, you know, people who live just on the other, you know, on the outskirts of the law in this way, or they're having to just make, you know, get by, like they chose it. And this, it's like very obvious that that was not chosen, that was foisted upon him, and a result of the environment being very dangerous, you know, and And it's that's the reality, is that when something uproots, something affects your life, that is often coming from left field, and most of us are just trying to process, absorb it, and get through the experience.
Yeah, it's this. I remember watching interviews with those that were incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, and to hear them tell the stories and the hows. And Lynz, you and I had a recent conversation about Whitey Thompson, who was an Alcatraz inmate, and just I met him at the dock boarding a boat to go to Alcatraz, and he was autographing his book that he wrote about his life. And it's just it's not fascinating, it's just mind-blowing that here we grow up in such a bubble and we don't realize this stuff is happening 5 miles down the road, and these lifestyles exist so close to us because we are in a bubble. And hearing this interview kind of made me open my eyes and remember that 4 blocks away, this is their life. This is the way they're having to live their life. And it's just mind-blowing, man.
Yeah. And I think, society, we've kind of put up a lot of guardrails to make it seem like things can't go wrong, and that everything is out, there's a path for everything to go perfectly. And, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and it can go sideways real fast.
That there is. And we're going to get into that right now.
Are you constantly on edge? Like, is there ever a day in prison that goes by at the end of it, you're like, all right, that was an okay day? Like I didn't get, didn't get attacked, and, none of this shit happened. Like,
I was most definitely on edge every single day, but at the end of the night, I used to feel that way every day. Like, you know what? This was all right. But every single day, I can honestly say, after I'm gonna just give about a 2-week exception for the first 2 weeks. Every single day for 9 years, with an exception of 2 weeks, I walked around with a knife on me every single day.
Was it needed in there too? Like, were people getting cut up?
It was most definitely needed. I probably seen a handful of situations where people was getting like cut across the face. They call it a $150. I probably seen a handful of those, but it was just a whole lot of stabbing going on. Any type of weapon, really. Like when I say I had a knife on me every day, I'm really speaking for like just a weapon in general. Because I know sometimes like the police will come shake down, I lose my knife, they find it, and I can't get another one right now. So I might cut a piece of metal off my box and it'll just be used as a slapstick. Like I'm gonna just hit you with it, But every day for 9 years, I definitely had a weapon on me. Every day. It was definitely needed. Out of the whole 9 years, I think for 14 months, it wasn't needed. I was sent to a medium security prison years down the line once I got my security lowered. And it was sweet, man. It was so sweet. I'm talking about 14 months. I didn't see not one stabbing or none of that, but I kept getting caught with cigarettes, weed, and cell phones. So they raised my security and sent me back to the high security prison. So out of that whole bid, probably 14 months, I was kind of chilling.
Now, Bill was sentenced to 9 years for armed robbery, and served his time in 2 different locations. Before this clip, he talked about, being in the county jail, going through the court process, and then being woken up in the middle of the night and put on a bus, and just the uncertainty and the anxiety, not knowing where you're going, what's coming next. What a story. What a story this guy has, and how he later in the show steps up and becomes a father figure to his younger brothers and does his best to guide them in their life and their life decisions. It was a cool episode, and I'm thankful to Mark and Jason for doing what they're doing with Broken Home Podcast.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this one come down the pipe with under just the drops feed, so we can listen to the whole episode and kind of experience what you experienced there.
Yeah, it was a good episode. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, maybe new to Feed Drops is a show where Lynz and I bring two podcasts like we just did to the table, shows that might not normally hit our radar, and share them with you. So if you're looking or know anybody that's looking for a new show to listen to, you can turn them onto ours, and we just might bring to the plate a show that they might enjoy as much as we did. And then we have Just the Drops. Lynz, talk about Just the Drops.
Well, we understood that as podcast listeners, you may want to hear the piece of show where Brian and I are talking and bringing clips and going through it in that way. And you might also want to hear the full episodes, but you may want to know which is which. And so we put a second feed together called Just the Drops, and that's where the full episodes go. We didn't want a big clogged feed with a bunch of different types of episodes that made you have to sort a bunch, but different feeds so that you can choose your experience. I think this one here where we talk is certainly the most popular right now, but people are enjoying the Just the Drops feed because you get a little intro from us and then a full episode, and you don't know what it's going to be necessarily. You can kind of go down the feed and it'll go between, a fiction show, and then we'll go into, a Web3, and then, we kind of go around the horn. So it's kind of like a big random button on different podcasts. So you can kind of just sort of go down that rabbit hole and see if you like it.
It's definitely a mixed bag of categories or genres. But, people can hear about a show, check out Just the Drops, and get a bigger taste of that show before they hit those show notes and go and subscribe to that show if it resonates with them, which is kind of cool, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if you want to sort of stay tuned to all of our rumblings in both shows and our social media and everything, the Substack newsletter we do is the best place to do that, to kind of hear about everything that's going on, get all the announcements. So definitely check us out, the Substack there.
Yeah, and every Monday that goes out with the two new offerings for the week and just what's going on within Feed Drops with Lynz and I. And it's free to subscribe. You can hit us up at Substack, and there are obviously links in the show notes below. And I know we're at 30-minute mark, but we have something cool to share with you.
Yes, we have an announcement to make.
And that announcement is Feed Drops is launching some NFTs. We're diving headfirst into this Web3 cryptocurrency world, but we're doing it, I think, a little differently.
Yes, I would say that one of the things we're doing here is we're doing it with a goal of having it bring podcasters together and build a community. And so we've set it up to help highlight the podcasts we've supported, and there's sort of a participatory element where a certain amount of the income from the project gets put in a community pot, and everyone who has one of these NFTs with voting rights gets to select a charity or which charity that this community pot will fund.
Yeah, so just like Lynz and I choose a show to bring to you every week, Lynz and I are going to bring forth a charity. And an NFT holder, again with voting rights, will be able to say 2080 for Lynz. So Lynz will get 80% of the pot once we average out those votes. We want both charities to walk away with something. All the charities that we choose to work with are going to be in the creative space. And we think that's important to support the creative space, just like we're attempting to support podcast creators with this show. So
yeah, we get so much out of it that we know we have to give some back into it too, and that makes it a lot more fun.
That it does. And our first NFT is going to drop on the 1st of August. And there are going to be NFTs that are dropped for the episodes that we've featured on Feed Drop. So if you want to make a statement, I really got value from this show, you can join this community by purchasing that NFT. And we're doing limited numbers. This isn't 1,000 NFT drop. We're going to drop 10 NFTs per episode, so roughly 20 a week. Now that's going to change in the future a little bit. And I want to give a huge shout out to Carlos at uncut.fm and his entire team that has created this platform for podcasters to have a Web3 NFT supported community on uncut.fm. So thank you to Carlos. And I mean, we've been in meetings with, and it's awesome to be able to sit down with the creators of these platforms and, talk about use case, etc. What's your experience, Lynz?
Well, I think one of my favorite parts is watching a company that understands they created a podcaster in residence program to get this thing started, and we applied and got accepted into it. And I really, tech companies take note. I think this is a really cool way to give people, it's like we're on the inside, we're getting to learn about their process, but we're giving them feedback from our real use. And there are, I think maybe a couple dozen in this program, and we're on a Discord server, we're learning from each other. And so I would say, as a podcaster, as a creative yourself, keep an eye out for some of these tech tools and the programs they do, because they need this kind of included user base that gets them feedback, and you might get more visibility from it. That's something we're finding right now, that because we're in the door early, that means we're going to get a lot of help promoting the project. And so this early adopter thing is kind of a fun way to dip your toe in and, hopefully get more visibility out of it.
And we wanted to pass that along to the shows we feature and bring more visibility to their show with the NFT project, just as we are with featuring them on Feed Drops. And I've been having a lot of fun. I've been learning a tremendous amount about NFTs and the minting process and Discord. And Lynz, you've been a great help teaching me some things I'm unaware of. It's been awesome working with you on this. So
yeah, and let us know if you're wanting more content up to explain this stuff and how it pertains specifically to podcasters, and maybe how we can eyeball it. We can set up, maybe we can create a special video, or we can have a webinar and have people attend and give questions. But this is an area where things are kind of moving and kind of new. And if we can illuminate it and demystify it for you, then we would love to do that.
That we would. Well, again, I want to remind you, if you're not listening to this show on Fountain, head on over to fountain.fm and download that Fountain app, because you could be earning sats just by listening to this show that you're probably listening to on a player that doesn't give anything back to you.
Fountain's got some real sats appeal.
Some sats appeal. Was that off the cuff, bro, or did you write that?
Oh, just now in my head.
And that's why I love Lynz. He's witty.
It's sometimes a good one comes down the pipe.
Down the pipe. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Feed Drops. Check out our links in the show notes below. We'll see you on social media.
Bye-bye.